So welcome, Mark Worger, CEO and founder of MARTECH3D. Great to have you on the Blackfinch Ventures Fearless Founders Series.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Nice to be here.
Pleasure. So we invested in your company, I think it was earlier in the year, March 2023, through our EIS Ventures Portfolio Service. But maybe just to get things started, can you explain what it does? What kind of value does it bring to your customers?
Yeah, sure. So at MarTech3D, we exist to help manufacturers demo products virtually. So we know that online meetings have become fundamental to the sales process for most enterprise level manufacturers across the world. But if I've got a physical product and a complex product, it's pretty much impossible for me to be able to demonstrate that in an engaging way using traditional tools like PowerPoint or 2D websites and imagery. So we use 3D technology, and our platform enables these manufacturers to demo their products in a really effective way.
And I remember when we were looking at the investment earlier in the year, and we were talking about how it had come about and some of the challenges. COVID had come along, you said, and before COVID, people were kind of on the roads, going out with brochures, showing parts of the machinery. But COVID kind of threw a stop to all of that. So it sort of accelerated, did it a bit, the whole journey to being able to do this remotely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was already a trend pre-COVID towards virtual meetings, online meetings, not taking as much product to meetings and events. But we think that COVID accelerated that by at least 5 years, and of course brought forward all those kind of innovations and the need for platforms like ours. Absolutely.
Obviously I've used the platform a lot, and part of the challenge is to be able to do that, to show those big items of machinery and the functionality and all the different options in a very slick, a very sort of engaging way. And you actually work with some pretty big names these days, don't you? Are there any names you can talk about where perhaps people listening or watching this can go out and check out their websites and have a look at the tool?
Yeah, so we work with major global manufacturers like Renshaw and Sharp. So Sharp, the electronics company Sharp, providing digital display systems and technology for the workplace. And so their entire European sales team are now using our platform to deliver sales presentations and product demonstrations. And if you head over to their website at Sharp, the Sharp UK website, you'll be able to access their public-facing virtual showroom there.
Pretty amazing to have names like that at your stage of company. I've no doubt they would have checked out other sort of offerings in the market as well. So great job on that. But when we originally looked at the company, I remember team for us is a massively important part of the whole opportunity. And what we quite like is found a track record if someone's been there and done it before. And you actually have run a previous company, haven't you, in a similar kind of space? And I think that gave you a bit of a view on what to do next with this one. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you did before?
Yeah, so I actually kind of started by running sales, marketing, and ops for a small medical device company. So I was the person with medical kit in the back of the van, driving up and down the country, delivering hands-on, face-to-face demonstrations. And that's where really the seed of the idea for MarTech 3D began. I thought then that this was already an antiquated way of doing things, and we're talking like 15 years ago. But there has to be a better way. So that kind of parked that idea for a short period, and then started a company in the event tech sector, properly a bootstrap company. £1,000 on a credit card is where we started, and then over the next kind of 7 years, grew that to be one of the most respected interactive technology and software companies for the event sector in the UK and across Europe.
Very impressive. I love a kind of proper bootstrap journey. Some of my companies have been the same, and it does tend to end up with a founder that understands how to be capital efficient in their own company for sure. But so that took you to the event industry, and then COVID came along, I guess, and that dried up, and then you sort of started Martech. Is that how it sort of came about?
Yeah, so we were, having a great year, absolutely flying, and it was interesting because actually, what we were helping our customers to do was to be able to showcase products at events was our primary use case. And then of course the event stopped, and we lost the majority and then eventually all of our customers pretty much overnight in a week from hell in March. But that didn't change the fact that actually our customers still needed to be able to do similar things. They still need to be able to deliver these really engaging product demonstrations. And at the time, we weren't into 3D technology, but we absolutely believed that 3D technology was the way to help them do this virtually. So it was actually from that rather difficult time with hardship, if you like, having built the company up over a long period of time. But ultimately, we knew there was probably something bigger and better out there that we could use our experience for. And that's exactly where we started MARTECH3D from.
What we call that founder market fit. So a founder that really understands their market because of previous experience. It's another great proof point on the kind of investment filtering process. But no, so you're actually one of the earliest stage companies that we have in the portfolio today. The way we construct our portfolios is we do some pretty early investments that if they go right and our conviction's correct, then the multiples could be really, really exciting. And then we kind of balance that a bit. We diversify that risk against slightly later stage investments, maybe doing 1 to 2 million a year, so that we're kind of blending the risk across the portfolio. But you sit very much on the early sort of stage side of the portfolio. And that brings about some kind of unique challenges, doesn't it, around scaling, around trying to make sure you've got product market fit. Do you just want to talk through some of the challenges that you're working through at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's probably the biggest part of the challenge at early stage, of course, the number of unknowns. We know a lot. We've figured out a lot, particularly from our bootstrapping journey, and the acid test of that was being able to sell. But there's also a lot that you don't know, particularly in terms of scaling and some of those elements of product market fit, as you mentioned. So I think right from the beginning, that's where you can see the challenges. And obviously, when we come out for investment the first time, it's making sure that it's clear enough that we know enough and we've figured an awful lot out. But actually, an absolute necessity of being at that stage of company is that you haven't figured out everything. So I think being able to take our product to a bigger market and really monopolize a specific market is one of the targets and the challenges. And then to do that, you have to build a really effective team, from being a kind of very small, lean, founder-led team to then being able to scale up and bring in the right expertise. And then also, of course, like making sure that the product is scalable and absolutely resilient when you're dealing with these kind of large-scale enterprises on a much bigger scale with much bigger numbers.
Got to be bulletproof, isn't it, for the likes of Sharp to want to use it and to be really happy with it. And it's funny because go to market is an important aspect of what you do. And I know we were talking recently about how events for you are actually a really good prospecting opportunity. And so it's great because I've seen, I think I saw on LinkedIn a video around your own stand. And of course, it's impeccable because that's what you used to do in your previous company. So that's worked out quite well, hasn't it? But no, lots of challenges at that kind of stage. And when you raise investment, it is difficult, isn't it, to know where to put that cash. Have you had any sort of changes of mind since the investment financial model about where you invest capital, or has it gone kind of to plan so far?
I think broadly speaking, it's gone to plan, but there's certainly some significant areas that have changed. I think one of the things is that we're growing, we're doing really nicely, but certain things take longer than you think, and other things don't take as long as you think. So we've been balancing that. I think certainly on the product side, actually, there were lots of features that we wanted to build, and actually we've been able to do that quite quickly, which has been really advantageous. And I think on the sales and marketing side, we've made huge inroads, but particularly like it becomes pretty clear the skill level of people that you need across the company, and that makes you kind of make some interesting decisions around hiring that perhaps you didn't know before you'd kind of gone out at that scale. And so I think they're probably the two biggest areas that have been interesting, perhaps a bit surprising in terms of our development since the investment.
It's so hard, isn't it, to sort of choose how you grow the team. And I think sales, and I remember speaking to you about this when we met you as the investment was kind of going through, growing the sales team is one of the hardest things to do well. It's very easy to do it. You can go and hire a whole bunch of SDRs and account executives, but it's very difficult to do it in a way that reduces the risks of it not working. And I think you've done that in a very smart way. And I was going to ask actually, so I'm on the board of MARTECH3D as an observer, and then we have one of our venture partner network, Andrew Hughes, who's a bit of a veteran in the startup world. He's on the board as our investor director, and it's the three of us, isn't it, on the board? And so I suppose from that perspective, from the kind of governance board perspective, it's changed quite a lot for the company. How has that been from your perspective? Because sometimes it's a bit of a shift, being complete master of your own destiny to then having a couple of people around you that you need to sort of report to and come and talk to every month and things like that. But how's it been from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting journey. I mean, I'm a solo founder by trade. That was what I've done for the last kind of 7 years before starting MARTECH3D. 15 years all in because I've worked with independent bootstrap startups before. So I think there is certainly a step change when you're working directly in a formal way with a board. But I'd also add that at Blackfinch there's the business analyst team, and even going through the due diligence and investment process, that was a real eye opener as well. Just getting those kind of extra thoughts and input there, and I think so overall it's been kind of massively helpful as a solo founder. People that you can kind of lean on, rely on, to give that level of experience. And for me specifically, I think being able to give that broader barometer of what a high performing company at our stage really is, when before it's only ever been me to really make that judgment, whereas now obviously we're both answering to but working with different set of people and different minds.
Yeah, no, I mean it's been really interesting for my. I like being on the earlier stage companies because it's kind of where my experience, where my heart has been for many years. So it's nice to be on the board of this one, and I think it's been a pretty good dynamic. One of the things that obviously you send us each month is you send us your KPIs and your financials, and more recently we talked about you doing a kind of weekly pulse check, didn't we? And always when I suggest that to founders, it's met with a little bit of skepticism, and they're thinking, "Oh no, not another thing." But we were talking the other day about how actually you found that quite useful yourself, and you, irrespective of how it helps to keep myself and Andrew kind of in the loop.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's quite an interesting dynamic where when you're going through the investment process, it's somewhat adversarial. You're pitching. You're going from a point of pitching and trying to convince people that you know enough that you're worthwhile investing in. And then all of a sudden, a few weeks later, you're now collaborating, you're partners in business together. And although logically that makes complete sense, I think there is still, for me, particularly as a solo founder, is getting used to that relationship. And actually, by having something like tangible there every week, where I'm kind of almost like internally in a way forced to collaborate in that way, has been really useful, not just for the feedback, but then also to make sure that rather than being stuck in the weeds, I can actually like step out of that once a week and really take that more strategic overview of the business. And I think it's really helped both me internally strategically, but just like developing that more collaborative relationship as well.
Yeah, no, it's a really good thing to do, and often we suggest it not just really because it's good for us to see, but because we know that founders just almost, as you say, almost being forced to just step back once a week and think about, right, how are things going? Step away from the fires or whatever you're doing day to day for a moment and just review how things are going. Let's look at the cash flow. Let's look at these higher level strategy points. Normally they really quite enjoy that, and I know that you've been too. So from our perspective, it's actually been going really well. It's at the early days, March this year, that we invested in. It's quite unusual for very early stage companies to kind of hit their targets, their investment targets after the investment, because there's so many parameters you said earlier. But you've been doing that really well. So the tech's been going really well. I think nearly all of the kind of numerical metrics are all on target too. How does that feel from your perspective? And talk to me about the kind of the next 6 to 12 months. What you think it will be in terms of kind of growth and company hitting its objectives.
Yeah, one of the advantages for bootstrapping from the beginning is that you're very target orientated, and I think it forces you to have a realistic view of where you are and what you can achieve. So I think I'm pleased that we've been able to meet some of the targets that I had in the first 6 months following investment, but in some ways wouldn't expect any less. We've now got to that point where we really want to see some increased growth. So we're already growing at a nice steady pace, but I think we're starting to see that we're really knocking on the door of the industry and very close to having some really significant breakthroughs. So I think what we're looking for now is that real acceleration of growth over the next 6 months. I think we've doubled our monthly recurring revenues since earlier in the year, and I think we want to be doing that again to see off the end of the year, and then go from strength to strength from there.
And it's quite rare at the moment to double your monthly recurring revenues. A lot of companies are finding the climate quite difficult, so it's really good to see that, and just sort of moving through those growth milestones. And it comes from pipeline as well. I know we talked a lot earlier on about growing pipeline, and now that pipeline's really starting to move through, and next few months are going to be really very interesting. So for us, as a kind of from an investment perspective, this is one of the early stage companies that we hope, we got the conviction right, we got all of the sort of data points right, and it will go on to thrive and be a high kind of return multiple for our investors. For your perspective, though, in terms of the vision and where you kind of hope MARTECH3D gets to in the next kind of 5 years or so, how do you picture that in your mind in terms of sort of what it delivers to the industry?
I mean, having come kind of from the industry, particularly medical device manufacturing, my strongly held belief is that there are parts of that industry and the way that they sell that are fundamentally broken, that are no longer fit for purpose in the way the world is changing, and that we know that it is just no longer viable to be shipping large products, flying across the world, or whatever it is, for what are often quite early stage demonstrations and meetings. It doesn't make financial sense. It doesn't make sense in terms of climate either. And right now, there isn't enough solutions that solve that problem. So what our vision is we want MARTECH3D to be the tool that people think of if they need to demonstrate a physical product virtually, to be able to deliver a super slick sales presentation, or indeed be able to market their product in a digital or online way. We want to be the go-to company across Europe, across America, obviously the UK, which is what we're trying to get the critical mass for now, and then beyond that as well.
Yeah, it's great to prove it out in the local market, isn't it? And then scale internationally. And that's certainly something that many of our companies have done. So we'll look forward to supporting when you do that. Just skipping back to the product for a moment, are there any kind of exciting developments in the product or the way that it's going to be deployed that are coming up on the kind of the next 6 months or so that you're excited about, that are going to make a big difference to the company?
Yeah, I think what we have now is this product that has that wow factor. When people use it, their customers will often tell us it's the best sales presentation I've ever had. It's so much better than the 100 slides of PowerPoint. So we've really cracked that vital bit at the beginning that adds the spice, if you like. But beyond that, it needs to be able to kind of integrate quite intricately with the way that these major enterprises function. So our roadmap now is actually about building some of those key integration tools, being able to seamlessly integrate with CRM systems, to be able to track customers' usage of the platform, like our customers, so that you can really start to kind of embed our platform in processes throughout a whole organization. So we've got some stuff coming up around integrations and partnerships that are in our roadmap that I think are really exciting and just make it even more accessible for enterprises to be able to use the platform.
It's exciting that you're defining your ideal customer profile so well, quite early on actually, and we can see from these big enterprises that they really do get value. They do choose you as a provider. You're sort of specializing on that kind of area of the industry where you've got big equipment that probably isn't as well served as maybe, I guess, kind of consumer industry, where you can go to many shops and spin 3D models around and all kinds of things like you. But then really honing your proposition, I think that's what you're saying, isn't it? And building the integrations to support that ideal customer profile is the perfect way forward. Well, Mark, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're very, very busy to join me on the Blackfinch Ventures Fearless Founders Series. So we really look forward to working with you closely in the coming years to try and hopefully move it all along, do that global expansion, make it a really big success. But thanks for being on the series today.
That's perfect. Thanks for having me. Cheers.